is our guide in the vast expanse. It's where we reside, hands up to the sky, let the bass ignite. Feel the grooves around us, everything's alright.
From the foundation heights, where the truth is our guide in the vast expanse. It's where we reside, hands up to the sky, let the bass ignite. Feel the grooves around us, everything's alright. It's radio, let the truth ignite. Together we'll shine, bringing shadows to light. In this cosmic dance, we're connecting the dots.
Tune into the frequency, let's explore the spots. Heavy bass drops with tight beats.
Illuminate the shadows, the echo of our call.
On this road we will never fall.
Feel the energy rising, can you sense the spark? As we dive deeper into the cosmic arc.
Stories of the universe, mysteries unfold. In the heart of SNX, where the truth is told. Every note we play, every line we write, crafting our legacy, shining ever bright.
Next radio, let the truth ignite. Together we shine, bringing shadows to light. In this cosmic dance, we're connecting the dots.
Tune into the frequency, let's explore the spot. Here in the spotlight, we're taking our turn. With the fire in our hearts, let the passion burn. As the next radio's call, ringing through the air. Together we rise, together we dare.
So join us now, let the rhythm flow. With SNX Radio, we're ready to go. Unraveling the mystery side by side, we stand hand in hand. In this dance of truth, let the story expand. Of our galaxy. Of our galaxy. And with the horizons, our spirits ignite, chasing the dreams that fill the night. The stars are our compass, and time is our friend. Together we'll journey where stories transcend. Mystery cloaked in the vast unknown. Truth and discovery seek we soul. In the starlit wonder we seek the key to unlock the secrets of our galaxy. Through endless horizons, our spirits ignite, chasing the dreams that the stars, our story unfolds. In the universe, our destinies are told.
Sparking nights in the dark night glow. Flashbacks on the track, watch the past unfold. Got a story to tell, of courage untold. Rise up from memories, watch us take control. Echoes of yesterday feed our fight. From shadows to light, we'll take flight. In this race, embrace our might. Hold our dreams, got the future in sight. Rise up high, let courage unbind. Erase the past, keep future in mind. Every step forward, no looking behind. We own this moment, leave fear confined.
Take the journey, come on, let's go. Ooh yeah, where the stars and secrets flow. Summation X radios glow. In the night, we'll ride the show into the unknown, unknown, where mysteries are shown, shown. Dance to the beat we own, oh, yeah. Come with us and let it go, go. Night sky whispers in the dark. Secret trails will leave a mark. Follow close, ignite that spark. We're on a ride, it's just the start. Into the unknown, unknown, where mysteries are shown, shown. Dance to the beat we own, oh, yeah. Come with us and let it go, go. Feel the rhythm
Hello and welcome everybody to SNX Radio. This is Coley, and tonight we have a very special guest. We also have Rodney. How are you doing, Rodney?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing good. We switched our equipment, and Scott, I know you're out there watching and probably talking about the technical difficulty, but the struggle was real today. So thank you everyone for bearing with us. I go through chat real quick. We got Polly. Hey, girl. Mabel, which is, oh my gosh, how are you doing, Paul? He's from Canada. I got Scott. I know I saw down here too. Got so many people coming out. It's great. Oh, Mike Newman from UAP Nexus is here. So everybody's listening. Go ahead. We're bringing out Grant Cameron, rolling him out here pretty quick. So when you have questions like we asked to ask, go ahead and put those all in caps. Hello over to our Twitter friends. If you want a question, you guys are pretty quiet over there. If you just go ahead and click on the video, it will give you the option, but we do have that chat open. It's easier. It just seems like it's easier for some reason on YouTube, but we have YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and many, many more. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Grant Cameron. For those of you who don't know him, you must. If you do, you know. If you know it, you're about to find out. So Grant Cameron has been investigating the paranormal and the UFO for several decades. He's author of many books. I was going through them today. I was like, man, he has a lot of books. I hadn't realized how many he actually had out. So I was even further impressed. So Charlie Red Star, the Clinton UFO Storybook, Breakthrough, the Psilocybin School, the Portals, UFO Mount Shasta, Contact, Modalities, Jimmy Carter Paranormal and UFO Tales, the Canadian Government UFO Story, Triangles, Aliens, and Messages, and Inspired, the Paranormal World of Creativity, Weird Paranormal Tales of Apports and Manifestations. Here he shares findings from over 30 individuals who claim to have had experiences of piloting UFOs. Many of these people regard their experiences as having occurred in a dreamlike state. I understand that. I definitely do. Nevertheless, the reports are consistent with whistleblower accounts. Working for covert special access programs. Above all, Cameron argues that we must seek to understand consciousness-related aspects of the phenomena, and he is trailing and blazing the way through to disclosure. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and bring Grant on.
Beautiful. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Beautiful. It's a wonderful introduction. I sound famous.
You are, oh, Grant, you are famous. I just want to make sure, let me see here. We somehow, I don't see you on the stage.
Yes,
Can you see him on the stage?
Yes, I see him.
You see him? Okay. Well, Grant, for some reason, I can't see you on the stage, but they say you're on there, so everybody can see Grant. That's
Oh, you can try to get him on the big screen, yeah.
I don't know exactly why he's not even popping up, but we're gonna roll with it. Because
I can see both of you.
you can? Okay. Well, that is all that matters. So why don't you go ahead? That was just a brief introduction. I was going through it, and I tell you, I could not believe all of the books that you had written and authored. And I started going through, and I know I definitely want to hit disclosure. You're really trailing the way, and for experiencers, and we appreciate that very much. So yeah. So why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Okay, I'll just give it a little bit of a background. It was actually, what is today? May the 10th. It was about 9th. It was about this week, 50 years ago that I started. And
Wow.
I had the UFO sighting. I had no interest in UFOs, extraterrestrials, or anything. I was interested in Edgar Casey. I was interested in near-death studies, weird things that happen around people when they die. I did a paper at the university on that. And I've come sort of through a whole litany of things that have happened during my life. This is basically all I've done. And I guess the important thing that I can point out to people is when I first saw it, my first instinct was there are miracles. Like, I can't believe it. There actually are these things. The object came in so close, right in front of the car, flew right, very, very in close. There's no doubt what I was seeing. And I think that's the way they wanted it. They wanted me to be in a situation where I would never, ever doubt what the phenomena. And what puzzled me when I first had the UFO sighting was I wondered what it was doing. It didn't seem to be doing anything. It was just sort of flying around. I saw it in 75, 76. I saw it 5 times in pretty close. And all I was interested in was telling the story. So I told the story. It was called Tales of Charlie Red Star. Nobody wanted to publish it. The local publisher who should have published it said, "Mr. Cameron, you may believe in this kind of stuff. Count me among the unbelievers." And I was like horrified that I couldn't get any reaction to this. And I sort of gave up on sightings. And all I wanted to do from 1975, or actually be 76 when the book wasn't published, was to figure out who knew. I knew that I didn't know what was going on, but I figured that somebody in the world had to know what the heck is going on here. What was this thing that I was looking at? And I started on this pursuit that's been 50 years, trying to find the highest level person that I could find who would have the answer to what we're actually looking at. And it started with the Canadian government. It moved to the highest level source I think anybody's ever had, which is Dr. Eric Walker. And after that, he led me to the president. I figured, well, the president's got to know what's going on. He's the most powerful guy in the world. And I got a little bit of information there. And then I went after the highest level CIA people like Ron Pandolfi. And I ended up having an experience in 2012 that changed everything for me. I was watching a lecture by Colin Andrews, the famous crop circle guy. It was just like the UFO thing. I had no interest in crop circles. I happened to be in this lecture. I figured he was a prominent researcher, so I would go into the lecture, and he was talking about consciousness and crop circles. And I got I guess you'd call it a download or an intuitive insight. It came with absolute certainty, and it said, the answer to, that question you asked in 1975, what's going on here? What is this thing? It's got to do with consciousness. And as I make the joke, in 2012, when this happened, I couldn't have spelled consciousness. I couldn't have cared less. I really didn't know what it was, except it had something to do with ESP. And that's when everything shifted for me. And I've moved to now where I'm basically spend most of my time on consciousness, what's really going on with consciousness, and how it fits into the UFO situation. I've written a number of books, 4 books on the disclosure effort, and I've got my 5th, which hopefully will be my last one that'll be coming out maybe in the next few months. And so I've followed the whole disclosure thing, and I'm one of the people that has sort of joined Jacques Vallée, and I no longer believe that this is going to be strictly extraterrestrial. This is something way beyond anything that we are aware of. It's so far advanced that people can't even imagine. There's actually a guy, a high-level CIA guy, his name is Jim Semvian. He called it indigestible. He had a 6 to 8 hour briefing on the UFO subject from high-level officials that talked to him. He said these guys had as many clearances as he had. And basically the story is this thing's indigestible. This thing is so much more complex than what people think it is. And that's basically where I'm at now, is this idea of what's the nature of reality. And I think we've sort of missed the boat in terms of dealing with this thing as a technology, as nuts and bolts, as, we get this, we're going to be able to get free energy and fly around and stuff like that. And I don't think at all that's what it's about. For example, we're talking about experiencers. I say the experiencers are the most important people in the field. They are the ones that are interacting with whatever this intelligence is that we're dealing with. And those are the people you need to listen to. And we've sort of handed it off to scientists, stuff like that, people who really haven't had the experience. It's the people who've had the experience who know. Everybody else just simply believes. So I've worked a lot at it. And some of my books that will be coming out are on this basic idea of what is consciousness, how does it fit in, the direct connection between near-death experiences and UFO experiences, and all the other phenomena, whether it's Bigfoot or whatever it is. It's all the same thing. It's the basic understanding you have to have is that consciousness is primary, and these people understand how consciousness works, and they're able to pop into our physical reality, pop back out of our physical reality. And 40% of experiencers, if you've seen the big survey that was done with the free survey, 40% of all people who've had UFO experiences say at one point during their experience, they knew the answer to everything in the universe. I've had that experience during psychedelics. You'll hear 31% of people who've had near-death experiences will report the same thing. At one point during my experience, I knew the answer to everything in the universe. And that's critically important, because if you're on a ship with a being and you are allowed to see the answer to everything in the universe, that means that the aliens or whatever these entities are have the access to everything in the universe. They know all the answers, and therefore they are not here to figure out how our DNA works. They're not here to pick up rocks and plants and figure out what's going on. They know exactly what's going on. They're here for completely different reasons.
I agree. And what do you think that they're here for?
I think the basic message that they give is this idea that consciousness is primary. You have to realize, almost like the Eastern traditions, the basic premise of Eastern traditions is remember who you actually are. You are not the puppet on the stage. We think that we're, individuals, and that this is what it's all about, and we have our 80 years, and then we either go to heaven or we don't go anywhere. And basically, I think the number one message that people talk about, if you look at the survey, 54% were talked to about oneness and love. So oneness is the key message. It's the absolute message. It's the understanding that you are an entity. You are eternal. We are all part of the one. There is no separation. And that even goes back to Eastern traditions as well. The Tao Te Ching, very first lines of the Tao Te Ching sort of sums up what's going on. It says, the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. The nameless is the beginning of heaven and earth. The Tao is the mother of 10,000 things, which basically says that the Tao is not a noun. What we've done in what we've got is a verb. It's all alive. It's all conscious. It's all connected. And you will get that from people who've had near-death experiences, from people who've been on the ship, from people who've had psychedelic experiences. The whole pile of these different paranormal experiences, people will get this idea that it's all one thing, and it's a verb. So to say, once you name it, so it says the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. And what we've done is we've basically, in science, we've changed it from a verb, everything's alive, everything's conscious, everything's one, to nouns. So science will say there's particles, there's subatomic particles, there's galaxies, there's people, and they're all nouns, and they're not conscious, they're not connected to anything, and that's wrong. It's all a consciousness field. And I've even gone as far as to propose that we are actually creating the universe, that God did not create the heaven and earth. God created the sparks of the divine, and we are the ones that are creating the heavens and the earth. And you'll see this in quantum physics, this idea that a particle does not manifest until it's observed, until it's measured. And that's this whole idea that we are using energy and consciousness to build the universe. And what's going on is that the universe is getting more complex and grander, and you add your thing and I add my thing, and we have this and we add this and we add this, and it gets more complex and more elaborate. And that's what it's all about. And that's what they're here, is to remind us that we are all the same thing. We are all connected, and that you don't realize it until you've had an experience, until you've been on a ship and you realize there's no time and space. You can see in 360 degrees, all these things that are described in out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, and you realize this is all going to be the same thing. And Ray Hernandez interviewed 3,200 experiencers and did this poll with 670 questions, basically came to the basically same conclusion. He heard me give a lecture on consciousness when he had an encounter. He tried to call down a UFO, and this big UFO appeared, and he suddenly got the idea that consciousness, that he could communicate with this thing. And he found me by Googling consciousness and UFOs, and I gave a lecture in Florida. He got the lecture, and then 2 days later, he was in his car in Miami, Florida. He's driving down the freeway, and all of a sudden he said he's out of his car. He's listening to national public radio, and suddenly he's outside of his car. He's in this sort of a dimension, and there's these beings, and there's this wheel that's spinning, and the wheel has remote viewing and psychic phenomena and UFOs and mediumship and all these different things, and the wheel is spinning, and in the middle is consciousness. And the being said to him, you've got to quit parsing this stuff. It's all the same thing. So what it is that what we're seeing is beings who are understand that you can move through walls, you can do all this kind of stuff. And when you start talking to experiencers, you'll one of the questions I always ask experiencers. Well, there's a number of questions. I ask the questions nobody else ever asks, but I say, you're on board with a ship, with a being. Yep. Okay, what was the name of the guy you're dealing with? And everybody always, there's a bunch of beings on the ship. There's always one that people deal with, and that person tells them what's going on. And then I say to them, did the being have any clothes on? And they go, no, I don't think so. I didn't have any clothes on. They said, don't you think that's kind of strange? Didn't have any clothes on? Did they have any sex organs? No. Did they have a belly button? No. Did they have nipples? No. And then you'll even get stuff like David Jacobs, who was doing his people where they would do what's called a mind scan, where the being would get in really close and get eye to eye with them and look into your eyes and could see what you were thinking. And then he would say to the people, is he breathing? And the people go, nope, it's not breathing. And you start to look and you start to realize there's almost like dream signs. If you're familiar with lucid dreaming, the way you become lucid in a dream and stop dreaming and suddenly become lucid and realize what's going on is they have what are called dream signs. So you'll have, like, mine is always, when I tried for years, I could never get it to work. My dream sign was always my dead father would appear in my dream. And I would wake up and I go, how can I not figure that out? That shouldn't be happening. And so what we have is dream signs that they're giving us indications. The phenomena is sort of interacting with us and giving us hints as to what's going on. And I'll give you the example, and then you can ask another question. The latest thing, if you're following the Skywatcher deal, a lot of controversy about it. So I watched what they were doing. And what you basically got is these guys who have these objects that they're filming, and they've come up with 9 categories of UFOs. And what you see with those 9 categories of UFOs is they are all different. None of them are the same that people have been reporting for years. When I look at it, I go, okay, so where's the wooden ships from 1896 with the propellers and the balloons and stuff like that? Where are the Foo Fighters from World War II? Where are the green fireballs? Where are the Adamski Bell crafts? Where are the crafts with the windows that Betty and Barney Hill saw? Where are the triangles? None of that. They have 9 new categories. And it's almost like the phenomenon is just laughing and says, okay, let's give them 9 new categories. And one of the categories is an absolute dream sign. So they have these 9 categories. And category 7 is a jellyfish. And it's 2 meters across, and it has tentacles that are 4 to 5 meters hanging off it. And I'm going, do you seriously think that somebody came 1,000 light years across the universe in a 2-foot wide jellyfish? This is crazy. This is to say to you, like, it's not what you think it is. And so you see 9 different categories of objects that they have, and none of them are the same. And if you listen to some of the high level officials, James Lakatsky, who ran the OSAP program, he sort of summed it up, and he said he was inside the craft. He managed to get inside the craft. And what I've heard from Jack Sarfati, I don't know if you've interviewed him, Jack Sarfati talked about a Navy guy who was part of the program who talked to him. And he said that the craft not only is conscious, because this is what I found when I talked to people who were in the craft. The craft is alive, conscious when you touch the craft, inside the craft. And everybody touches something different. Nobody touches the same thing inside the craft. And I thought that was kind of weird. And you become one with the craft, and whatever you think is what the craft does. You can say, I want to go, as my one friend said, I want to see the Milky Way from a distance. And in 1 second, he was there. And this is this whole idea. It's a conscious thing. It's more of a dream type thing that's going on. And we've put it into this nuts and bolts category. And that's what you see with this whole thing with the 9 categories that the Skywatchers have come up, is they've just gone with 9 new categories. And Lakatsky, who ran the OSAP program, said that all the sightings appear to be different. He said it was like driving a car down a freeway and all the cars are different. And this guy that ran the Navy program on the UFOs had said that the craft not only is conscious, it has its own free will. And you've heard these stories about the fact that they're having trouble with the crafts. They can't back engineer the crafts. What he stated was not only is the craft conscious, it has its own free will. And unless you have the right mindset, you ain't getting in the craft. They can't get in the craft. And so when you hear James Lakatsky tell this story that he's at a congressional facility in 2011 with Senator Reid, who was the head of the Democratic Senate at the time, he said that he got inside the craft, and that the craft was partly conscious and partly physical. And he said there was no engine, and he said, so what are we dealing with? And that's sort of like a hint in order to look at it and say it's going to be way more complex than you think it is. It's not going to be nuts and bolts. The phenomena keeps changing. Every couple of years, it does something different. There's different crafts. And now we're on the orbs, and we have the different phenomena that's happening now is that you have light language, which didn't happen when I was in 75. You have what are called ground traces. You remember Stanton Friedman talking about ground traces. We got this physical evidence. Like the UFO lands and it burns this thing and it leaves tripod marks. That hasn't happened for 30 years. And cattle mutilations haven't happened for at least a decade. And you see that they change it from this to this to this to this, and we're being led with breadcrumbs down the path. And what they want us to know is this idea that we are all one, that we are all that you're not a physical being, that it's like Shakespeare says, all the world's a stage, all the men and women are but actors. You have your entrances and exits, and each man plays many roles. And we've come in to do this. And when I'll talk to experiencers, I'll say, did you ask the alien whether he was actually an alien? And there was three of them that did. One was Sherry Wild, famous story. She wrote a book called The Forgotten Promise, which is one of the categories that is very important, because most experiencers, if you ask, I think it's 25% say the being was with them in their last lifetime. So if the being was with you in your last lifetime, there's something different going on here. This is not some alien lost in space that they just suddenly found his way here. And it gets that much more complex in terms of the fact that the beings are not physical beings. They can come in. And that's what Sherry Wild, when her being, she was getting her book published, and the publisher said to her, he said, Sherry, you said this guy's from Andromeda. And she said, yeah, that's what he said. But Sherry, you said he's a Zeta. Well, yeah, he's a Zeta. Yeah, he's a Zeta. And he said, well, Sherry, he can't be from Andromeda if he's a Zeta. He's from Zeta Reticuli. And she went, really? And she never thought of that. So she said, when Doc came back, she said, okay, what's going on here? Well, are you an alien? What's the deal here? Are you actually an alien? And he said, no, that would not best describe who I actually am. I'm an etheric being on a mission in the cosmos for the creator. And that's what we have to remember. The bottom line story is, remember who you are. You're an etheric being that's come into the world to play a puppet. And a lot of the experiencers will say categorically, Mike Clellan, the guy who wrote the Owl books, talks about experience. He's on the side of a road. He's sleeping there, and he sees this UFO sitting up on top of the hill. And then he goes back to sleep, and suddenly he's above the UFO. He's out of his body, and he comes into the UFO, and he's walking down the hall with these two grays. And there's a gray hanging from a hook on the hall. And he said, he walks by, suddenly he's in this gray suit, and he looks at himself and goes, oh my God, am I gray? And he's the same size as the grays. He went from 6 feet down to 3 feet. He's a gray. And he's going, what is going on here? And then they led him into this thing, and these beings are all sitting behind this table. And he said it's like a cheap motel in Indiana. They got cheap carpet on the floor. They got the cheap table. These beings are saying to him, okay, Mike, it's time. And then Mike Clown says, time for what? And he said, it's time. And he said, time? What am I doing here? What do you mean time? And they said, it's time for you to get going. And then suddenly they put in his head, and then he realized that he had volunteered for this. I said, you never told me it was going to be like this. You never told me it was going to be this depressing. You never told me it was going to be, yeah. And he started swearing at them, and then they sort of calmed him down. And then he said, they said, you volunteered for this. He said, I volunteered for this? No. And they said, yes, you volunteered for this. And this whole idea that we are all one. We may have been grays in our last lifetime. We've been with these people, and we've made agreements to come into the world. And that's why when you see the surveys, you see these things like Chris Bledsoe, when they asked him, when he was under depression in 2008, when did you first encounter the beings, the guardians? He said, they have been with me since before I was born. And you got to remember, he was a very religious, didn't believe in reincarnation, a very Pentecostal deacon. And then they said, the regressionist said, like in your last lifetime. And he said, yes, in my last lifetime. And that's what we're looking at. We're looking at, I think it's going to be a much more spiritual than people think it is. In fact, it may be all spiritual. And that's what we've got to go back to say, how did the world actually begin? because quantum physics 100 years ago actually established for a fact that consciousness is primary. Max Planck, Schrodinger, all these Wigner, all these guys that won the Nobel Prizes said consciousness is primary. Nothing gets behind consciousness, which means the Big Bang doesn't start with matter and then create consciousness. Consciousness creates matter. We've got it backwards. And I've had a couple of download experiences where they've sort of explained some of this stuff to me. And all I'm trying to do is put it down and get people on the route. And we are making progress, because in 2012, when I had the download experience about consciousness, I wasn't interested. I'd never heard of this subject before, and nobody was talking about consciousness. Now it's a big buzzword, even with these Skywatcher guys. They talk about flying the craft. They talk about the psychic component, and gradually the disclosure is happening, but it's happening through the phenomena. As Jim Semivan said when he was asked, who's running the show? He said, they are. They're running the show. They're unraveling this thing, and they're gradually leading us to this idea that we're going to realize that the world is not the way you think it is. Not made out of little nuts and bolts. It's made out of consciousness, energy, and it's all vibration. And these beings are just vibrating at a higher level than we are. There's no levels, because those are nouns. It's just like water. You're in the water, and we're down at the bottom of the ocean in the dark, and we can't see. We don't know what's going on. And all of a sudden, one of us, because we get hypnotized, or we have a download experience, or we have a trauma experience, which is very common to open people up. You have a trauma experience, and suddenly you float higher in the water and see all these fish. You go, oh my goodness, fish. And then you go back down to the bottom and you say, I saw these fish. Come on, you didn't see no fish. And then you go back up and you float there, and then you say to the fish, what level am I on? And the fish says, what do you mean, you idiot? You're not on any level. You're in the water. And the higher you get in the water, the closer you get to the light, and the more you can see. And that's what's happening. They're higher in the water than we are, and they're trying to lead us down this path and trying to stop us from the nuclear weapon thing. The nuclear weapon thing is all part of the fear thing. There's either love, which is the basis of the universe, or there's fear. And we're more and more into separation, me versus you, good versus bad, different religions versus different colors of skin versus each other. And the more we separate, the more we go down this rat hole. But what's happened now is all that's been built in fear is now being raised to the surface to be seen in a new light. People are becoming awake to the fact that this consciousness thing, that we're all one, and hopefully we do it before we destroy the world, because that's what the world is coming down to now, is this idea of fear, that you've got to fear everything around you, that everybody's out to get you, that you're a victim and stuff like that. The message from these beings is exactly the opposite, that love is the basis of the universe. You're all one, you're all connected. And when you leave, people will complain, for example, that they got abducted. Well, if you got abducted in your last lifetime, would you think that was really evil? You go, hey, that's pretty cool. My last lifetime I got abducted. That's pretty cool. It's all experience once you get into the reincarnation world, that we're coming and we're going. And all we're doing is building the world more and more bigger and bigger. Whether you go to the subatomic level, you see every level it gets more complex, and there's more things you discover. And when you go into the outer realms of the universe, you just see that. I remember it was 2016, they said there's 110 billion galaxies, and then in 2016 there's reading an article that said, oh, there's 2 trillion. I go, 2 trillion? It went from 100 billion to 2 trillion. Like, that's 20 times. You're out by 20 times. This science is supposed to know what they're doing, and that's what you see. It just gets bigger and more elaborate, and that's where the phenomenon is. After 50 years, I can say that I'm eternally grateful I got to play in this game, because I call it the Super Bowl of all stories. This is the biggest story that will ever come down the pike. I got to play in the game, and I think whether the same with you, with all the people, that we realize there's a game going on. We're inside the stadium, we're playing. Most people are living lives of quiet desperation. They have not got a clue what's going on. And because we've got it, one of the things that the beings always want is they want you to share the message. Because what happens is, when you have your podcast and you have all your listeners, I have my podcast, my YouTube, whatever, and I have my lectures. And what happens is that we talk about it, and we may not agree on everything, but as we talk about it, it's almost like a Hollywood movie. The consciousness rises, and then eventually we get to the top, and everybody admits it. Because that's what happened in 2017 when the New York Times came along. Everybody thought that. I even wrote an article in 2009 that said, people are going to jump off bridges and the stock market's going to melt down. And if it was known that the government was investigating UFOs in 2017, the New York Times ran the article, and what happened? Absolutely nothing. Everybody went, yeah, I knew that already. Is now there's bodies and crafts. People are going to go, yeah, I knew that already. Consciousness is rising, and that's how it works. As Max Planck said, Max Planck says you do not win your opponent by convincing him he's wrong. Science advances when they die, and through one funeral at a time, the new generation is not offended with the idea. So that's what happens. It's a gradual process of raising consciousness where people start to realize, and that's what paranormal phenomena is about. When it's paranormal, that means it's outside the bell curve. And the thing is, it should tell you that there's something you're missing. If we knew everything about the universe, people wouldn't be walking through walls. People wouldn't be talking about going across the universe in 1 second and stuff like that. It's basically telling you something you got is wrong, and we have to stay open to the fact. So we're on the leading edge of trying to discover how the world actually works and passing it back to the lower generations, the new generations, and they will take it from there.
I agree with you. I say that everybody has an experience. It's a little bit different. It's subjective. But I called it points of reflection, which I find it absolutely fascinating that you're talking about this now, because I've always gone down that road. Like I believe that 1000% that they're a reflection of us. So when the little grays come in, do you think that's there to resequence us to awaken? Because I feel like from that point on, that's like changes your life course completely.
I'm not really sure about your question. Like the small grays, people will say that they're biological. Same as people will talk about the engine inside the craft is biological.
Right.
That Denise Stoner, who worked with Kathy Martin, talked about her experience where she was actually talking to the engine. And the engine, she said, "I feel sorry for you. You're locked in here. You're like this engine." And he said, "That's my job." He said, I'm in contact with all the other UFOs in the solar system. And so the beings, the small grays may be biological. And then again, this story that Mike Clellan tells, where he's going down the hall and there's this gray suit hanging on the hook, and suddenly he's a gray, and he's looking at his fingers, going like, "I can't believe this. I'm a gray." And this is the whole idea: is that if you're an etheric being, you can take on whatever you want. There's a guy who you probably should interview. His book was called One, the basic message, the oneness, and he's an Israeli experiencer out of Israel. And he had these green beings, and that's the thing. I believe all the beings are going to be different. We have this idea that there are all these categories, and when you start looking back there at the catalogs, you see that the beings have changed. There was no grays before 1961. There was no reptilians before 1980, and the beings are sort of coming, and you're part of the experience you have. So if you have an encounter with a gray, you're probably in fear. If you have an encounter with an etheric type being, you're probably very religious. I know people who are very high energy, who where sex is a big thing. They run into the reptilians, and you start to see this reflection. But again, it comes down to this idea that everybody's playing a role, like Shakespeare. Everybody's playing a thing, that we're all playing these costumes. And that's why I say you got to realize that you are not king. If you played King Henry VIII in grade 12 high school, that does not mean you're not King Henry VIII. You're playing King Henry VIII. You got to get it straight that when you leave, you're going to go, and then you're going to realize, oh, that was just a dream. The whole thing was just a dream. And that's what we're doing, is we're playing these roles, almost like a lot of people will say the abduction experience is something they agreed to. They agreed to, at first they'll deny it, but then as they go along, they realize, yeah, they agreed to do this, to come in. And a lot of the stuff that we think is random is not random at all. The people that you meet, the encounters, and I always sort of, to podcasters, I always sort of hypothesize that you and I, we all may have had a meeting before we were born, and I say, okay, I'm going to write these books, and I'm going to, go on podcasts. You're going to have this podcast. You're going to do this. I'm going to do this. And it comes down to finding out what your mission is. And that's one of the other questions I ask people who encounter beings. I'll say, do you believe you're on a mission? And they'll say, either they'll say yes, I don't know what it is, or yes, and they'll tell you a long story about what the mission is. Mm-hmm. And that's this whole idea that it's a lot less random than people think it is.
I'd have to agree with that too.
Yeah. Now, some people, the hardest question I found to answer for some is, how come I can go my whole life without having a paranormal or ET experience? It's like opportunity, location, or maybe they haven't raised their consciousness high enough. What do you think?
Well, whatever your experience is, that's the whole thing. That it's like the beings that are a different level than we are. They're doing something completely different than we are. that you and I, almost like the Bible says, too much is given, much is expected. So you and I all realize that this is a very important subject, that we are on the leading edge of this thing. As I point out, I said, you could have been born an untouchable in the streets of Calcutta and spend your day in a junkyard looking for something valuable enough to sell for food for tomorrow. You didn't get that life. You got to play in the biggest game that's ever come. And that's where too much is given, much is expected. So people's role may not be have anything to do with UFOs. They're just here to learn envy or greed or just to have a good time or whatever it is. Everybody's here for a different sort of mission. We sort of know these missions because people will go through regression. They'll work on it. They'll try to figure out what's going on. And the more they think about it, the more they recall, and they start to realize that it was bigger than just some random experience with beings. I really don't believe that very much is random at all. That my experience, for example, my first experience, the only reason I went out there, because I didn't have any interest, was because a local TV crew had caught this thing jumping from the ground up to 5,000 feet in the air in 3 frames of film. And the camera was 8.25 miles away. It was a TV camera from a TV studio. And I remember talking to the guy who was filming it. And he'd never shot a TV camera before in his life, because they'd gone out the night before. They almost caught this thing on the ground. And then they went back, and the guy said, "That's it, no more overtime. This is garbage. You guys want to go look at these stupid UFOs? You can go on your own time." So they've got a volunteer film crew with reporters and this film editor who got the camera, and he's sitting there, and he knew they'd almost got it the night before, so he's looking through the viewfinder, and I'm listening to him. He's telling me this story. He's looking through the viewfinder, and he says, "This thing's glowing up. It's glowing back down. It's on the ground. It's glowing up. It's glowing back down." And he says, "I got to get something on camera. The next time it glows up, I'm going to shoot." And it's almost like the UFO said, "You ready?" And he pushed the trigger, and the thing jumped into the air. And he got this very famous film that was all over the world at that time, of this thing jumping up in the air. And then I'm thinking, it was a couple of years till I woke up. And it was a couple of years later, I'm thinking, hey, that wasn't random. There's no way he could have pushed the thing just as that thing jumped up. And then I'm thinking, if he had not pushed the trigger, I never would have gone, because we had offered to go, and we didn't go because we'd heard the stories about it, and we didn't go for another 3 months because none of us were really interested. It was only when they got that film, and you start to see these things that you figure are, really aren't that random. And so every time I get an experiencer, and I've written maybe 3 books on these things, where an experiencer will come and they'll say, I got a message from the beings for you. And I go, "Really? You got a message?" And Chris Bledsoe was one of them. And he says to me, they want you to know the messages in the music. And I said, "Well, Chris, you may be talking to the wrong guy, because I don't listen to music. My whole family was musical. My mother was a church organist for 40 years. I had no interest in music whatsoever. I'm a radio talk guy. I'm a podcast guy. I'm not interested in music." And he keeps going. He said, "One song you should listen to is Kashmir by Led Zeppelin." And I go, "Whatever, Chris, you're still talking to the wrong guy." And then he said, "The other one you should listen to is After the Gold Rush by Neil Young." And I went, "What? Neil Young? Neil Young's involved in this thing?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Neil Young grew up in Winnipeg." I used to live in Winnipeg, which is the one place in Canada where even Canadians refuse to visit. It's the coldest place in the world. And Neil Young grew up there. He moved to California later, but he grew up in Winnipeg. And I'm going, "Neil Young's involved?" So I went to look at it, and I looked at the lyrics in Kashmir, and it talks about the silver seeds coming, and they're taking the chosen ones off the planet and stuff like this, and the world's being destroyed and stuff like that. And I'm going, wow. And then I realized that all these other experiences, like Patti Smith and the Flaming Lips and all these other groups, had also sang After the Gold Rush. And I start to think they don't even know why they're singing this song. And it was like this synchronistic event where you start to see that a lot of stuff that is coming, it's either, very weird that it happens at, these times, or, it's being planned. And that's what you see if you start talking to experiencers about the fact that they believe that they actually volunteer for this thing, and this is part of a mission they're on. And a lot of them won't want to talk about their experience, and the beings will come. Like Sherry Wild, for example, they said she said she woke up one day. She's a real estate agent in Wisconsin, and her daughters tried to stop her from publishing the book, because if you're in a small town in Wisconsin and you're a real estate agent, you don't want everybody knowing you're seeing UFOs and they're grabbing you and stuff like that. So they try to stop her. And then she wakes up one day, and she's sitting at her computer, and she's got the Word program on. She's going, "What's the Word program doing on? I don't use the Word program." And then she starts to read, and it's her experience. And she goes, "Oh, no, we're not going there. oh, wait, we're not going there. And then the being says, yeah, Sherry, timing is everything. I'm not writing your damn book. She says, no way. I'm not. And they managed to convince her. And now they're going to do a movie out of it, because she even said that they were at one point after she finished the book, and it was a best-selling book called The Forgotten Promise. She said she's in her car, and she says all of a sudden there's this TV screen, like a screen in front of her, and she's driving, and there's TV screens there, and she's going, "What are you doing? I'm driving. What are you doing? What are you showing me the stupid screen for? I got to drive. I can't look at the screen." And they said, "Oh, Sherry, it's the opening act to your movie." And now the woman has got a movie coming, and this is the opening act. So they're leading people along and giving you stuff. And the key that she put, and Mike Clown, that's why they said to him, you got to get going. That you volunteered for this is time. And 2 days later, he started to write the first owl book. And now he's written 3 owl books and all sorts of other stuff. And that's the whole thing, is we are the sort of the messengers of the phenomena. And what the phenomena is doing, as far as I'm concerned, I used to call it the theory of wow. They just want you to go wow. But now I call it the Jesus circus. So what they do is the same thing that Jesus did. You walk on water, you feed 5,000 people, you turn water into wine, you raise Lazarus from the dead. And next thing, you got thousands of people following you around, and they want to see this Jesus guy who's doing these things. And once you get everybody's attention, then you deliver the message. If you try to deliver the message before. So that's what the phenomenon is doing. It's doing this weird stuff. Like when I first saw it, the second night, I go, what's it doing? It's not doing anything. So I'll always ask people, when you saw UFO? Yeah. And they'll tell you exactly what time, what date, whatever. I say, what was it doing? The answer is always the same. I don't know. It wasn't doing anything. It was just there.
Yeah.
I think he knew I was looking. Do you think it wanted you to see it? Yeah, I think so. And that's the whole thing. When you start looking at this thing, that this is people being dragged in, and what they're doing is they're using this paranormal stuff, because if you've had an experience, you cannot get out of the rabbit hole. There's no way. It is as real, and that's why, like with out of body experiences, the divorce rate's like 80%. Because you have an out of body experience, you come back to your husband or your wife,
You don't get it. Yeah.
To God and flying through the universe, and they just Chris Bledsoe's wife locked him up in a crazy place, and he managed to talk his way out of there. That's what basically happens, is the rest of the family just goes, "Are you insane?" And next thing they're divorced, because you're in this sort of, you're thrown down this thing and you can't give it up. It's not like you can stop talking about it. You just know you got to talk about this, and it just bothers you. And that's what they're doing. They're using curiosity. And until there's on curiosity, there's no science. Science has to have on curiosity. Otherwise, if you knew all the answers to everything, you wouldn't do any exploration. It's when you're curious about something, like, why is this chemical reacting like this? Or, like nitroglycerin was invented by the guy. He had the nitroglycerin fell off the counter and it didn't explode. And he went, what's that? And he got all curious, and he ended up inventing dynamite. And that's a Nobel Prize. They all came from this accident. And that's what it is. They want you to be like, what's going on? What's the whole deal? And so if you've seen a UFO, I don't think it's really random. I think you're getting dragged into this thing, and they want everybody to talk about it. It's almost like Hollywood. They don't care what you say, as long as you spell the name right. And that's what they want, because they know that people will look at it, like in Hollywood, they'll use a lot of film people to, I believe the government is gradually leaking this stuff. And what they'll do is they'll put it inside a movie, because a skeptic can go, this is all garbage, we're going to watch a stupid movie. And they go, and they don't realize they're being subconsciously programmed, that their mind is being changed, because they're not, if you go face to face with them, they'll, make the sign of the cross and take 5 steps back and get out of here. But if they're by themselves, so there's this process of the phenomena doing this really weird stuff, and it changes. Like it's 1896, it was wooden ships, and then it was Foo Fighters, and there was green fireballs. It just goes, and they go from one thing to another thing, and everybody just keeps going, and they grab it like this is today. And I keep saying to people, you've got to realize in 1975 it was a completely different world. That it was not as complex, the phenomena, as it is now. It's an incredibly complex story. And it's almost like reality itself. Like, what is reality? How does it actually work? Where does the universe come from? And that's something, this is as complex as that, and probably the same thing.
It's so different how they've evolved through time. My grandmother saw one, and they actually got a picture before they destroyed it. And
Wow.
it's not like you see now. It's like,
Yeah.
it's advanced with technology, which I find
Yeah.
interesting.
Sure. People don't realize that back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, there was angel hair. It was a big thing. They were dropping this angel hair. This would hang from the trees and stuff. There's been no angel hair forever. Or Betty and Barney Hill had the UFO with windows. There are no UFOs with windows anymore. Nobody sees UFOs with windows anymore. And now the big thing is everybody's seeing orbs. And that's like, they just keep changing it. And everybody thinks this is the way it's always been. And I keep saying to people, no, it keeps changing. It's changing, changing, changing. And that's even like I even did with the grays. So people got the idea there's grays. So then what I did is I have a PowerPoint presentation. So I get Betty Hill's gray. And here's Betty Hill's gray. Okay. Here's Whitney Strieber's gray. Do they look the same? And you go, no, not even close. And then I put Betty Andreasen's gray. And then Mike Johnson's gray. And these grays. And you realize like, oh, they're all different. You're just using a name. And everybody's describing different things. The same as crafts. I at times I think that all the crafts are going to be different. All the crafts can have different propulsion systems. It's this weird thing that the rule in the universe is not commonality. It's uniqueness. So that's what we're doing. We're making the mistake. We got these cameras, and we figure we've got 260,000 reports from the OSAP. And we figure if we get another 10,000 reports, we're going to get it. We're going to figure it out. So we get more cameras, bigger cameras, more elaborate cameras and stuff like that. And we're looking for green ones. If we figure out what the green ones, that there's all these green ones, then we're going to figure out how to fly a craft. You cannot tell anything by looking at lights in the sky. They're lights in the sky. They don't tell you anything. It's not, and that's the importance of the experiencers. It's not until you talk to the experiencer that you actually realize that somebody's been in one of these things and they say it's anecdotal. And I say, well, it's all anecdotal. Nimitz was anecdotal. The pilots saw the bubbles under the water, and I say that I'm sure that when they were going and they're chasing this Tic Tac thing, which that first time the Tic Tac appeared, they're chasing the Tic Tac. The one alien say, "Hey, Zogar, go over and make some bubbles in the water. Make some big giant bubbles in the water." And then they fly over the bubbles and go, "Oh, it's in the water!" Oh, and they just get them dragged down the rabbit hole, and everybody starts to get the videos, and that's what it's about. It's this idea of gradually we're doing it, because the way we do it is we go into another country and we say, we're here to bring you freedom, democracy, Jesus, and McDonald's. We do this left brain thing. We're going to lecture you. And next thing they're pointing guns and saying, get the hell out of my country. Who do you think you are? And stuff like that. They're doing that. They're trying to force us to figure it out rather than coming in and telling us the story, because we're not going to believe it anyway if they come in face to face and tell us the story. But the experiencers have this very important role. And I am indebted to the fact that I got to talk to some of these, and then you start seeing these similarities of things in other paranormal experiences, like the stuff that you would not make up. Like when I had the people flying the craft, the first woman that told me this was 2013. She was a woman who had been abducted. She was remote viewing for the government, stuff like that. And she said, what did Stacy tell you about me? I said, I don't know. I'm just supposed to talk to you. Sounds good. She comes into the house. She starts telling all these stories about she's 2 years old in a diaper and the flying saucers flying away and they're dropping her off and stuff like that. And she's playing as kids and they're levitating these balls and stuff. And okay, I've heard all this stuff before. And then she says, yeah, and last night I was flying the craft. And I go, what? You were flying the craft? And she's like 75 years old. I go, you flying the craft? And all I could think about was Saudi Arabian women who at that time, you couldn't drive a car unless there was a man in the car with you. And I'm going, they let you fly the craft? She says, yeah, I've flown 3 different models. And I go, let you fly the craft. Well, how do you fly a craft then? She says, well, you do it with your mind. And then I realized why they put me together with her, because I was the consciousness guy and they wanted her to know. And then suddenly these people started popping out of nowhere who were all talking about this flying the craft thing with the psychic phenomenon. And I don't think that was random either. So that's when you start to, once you get on the path, and once you get on the path, you start thinking about it, you start getting the synchronicities and you start being fed ideas. You start getting ideas of stuff. And I had a major download in 2016 or 2017. I remember where I was, it came into my head. And if you've had the experience of the download experience, comes with absolute certainty. A lot of inventions. We're now doing a book called The Muse, the whole idea about where inventions come from. I got 51 Nobel Prizes that came in dreams. It came in instant download type things, everything. So it's the smart guys that invent stuff. No, it's not. It's the people who are able to shut down the male ego brain and allow the female brain, which is in contact with the universe. What we have is a situation where the expression they have is God talks to everybody, but only certain people are listening. The same as with the UFO experience, is that the phenomena is there for everybody, but only certain people can tap into it. And basically what it is the ability to shut down the voice in the left brain, to shut out that little chatter. I know everything. I know more about UFOs than the generals, and it's chattering away, and it makes the noise in the signal. And when you do regression or hypnosis or meditation, what you're doing is you're not quieting the mind. You're quieting the left brain. You're shutting that little voice down. And a regressionist will say, okay, we know you want to help. You left brain, we know you want to help, but can you go for coffee? We got some work here to do. And then you can come back later and tell us what's going on or whatever. And what you do is the right brain, the female brain, once you can shut it down, that's in contact with the universe. And that's where people get these downloads. And you get a lot of psychics or a lot of mediums have childhood abuse issues. You find this thing with trauma. And what trauma does, if you get thrown through the front windshield of a car and you have this trauma event, you have an out-of-body experience, all these people come back and they're all psychic. And they're able to talk to their dead grandmothers and stuff like that. And that's this whole thing. It sort of kills the ego, which happens in psychedelics. What happens in psychedelics is it kills the ego. And the message they gave me, I did 27 high-dose sessions. And they told me clearly, they said, surrender is the rule. Believe me, surrender is the only rule. And now I've seen more people coming across that as well, is this idea that we're fighting back. So if you have a near-death experience, you'll find the people who have the bad near-death experiences are the people who will not let go. They want to be in control. I want to be in control. And if you just let go, you surrender. And that's what happened to me. I had 5 psilocybin experiences that were really as much hell as you can possibly say it. And I was in it and I was trying to get out of it and I'm trying to stop it and it's going on. And then I'm thinking to myself, I can't stop it. I can't stop it. And I was all panicky. And then I said, okay, I mean, I can't blame anybody. I'm the one that took the drug. No, this is what it's going to be. For the rest of my eternity, I'm going to be in hell like this. Boom, it was gone like that. Instantaneously, it was over. And that was the surrender thing, which the left brain doesn't want to do. The left brain wants to be in control. It wants things to slow down so it can grab it, and stuff like that. And so I think we have to turn this thing more over to women who are more open to picking this stuff. I used to go to conferences before I had the download experience with consciousness. I was the same thing. You'd go into the room where they're selling all the books, and the women had the crystals and stuff like that, and you just look the other way as you're going past the crystal table. It's like, oh my God, that's crazy people. And now it's like, I understand what they're talking about, that they have been ahead of the game. And what we've got is the scientific world slowing us down in terms of wanting to believe that it's this physical world, that this is all nonsense, this is all crazy. But once you have the experience, it all changes. And you can see major people who have had the experience who were doubters. And if you've been in the experience, you know that how real it is and how important it is. And it comes with this absolute certainty, which I always said was the hardest part of the thing to explain. And this is what you find with the Muse thing, with people with inventions like the alternating current engine by Tesla. You know this is going to work. You go running back to the lab. None of them have ever been wrong. It's absolute knowledge. It's almost like you've been on the ship and you're given the information. It's the idea that all the information, all the inventions are there. Everything is there, and it's the ability to shut the left brain down, dissociate, and get into the field, get the material, and then somehow bring it back.
I can always tell who the new people are in this. They always have that sense of urgency. And I try to explain to them, I'm like, don't get caught up in the experience. Don't get up like the fragmented time. That's not the point. That is not the point of this. You've hit on so many topics that I want to talk DMT too with you, because I tried it also after talking and interviewing the last time. We do just have to take a really quick break and then we'll be right back. But there's a few things huge that you just hit on that I kind of want to go back through, if that's okay.
Okay.
All right. So thank you, everybody on SNX. We are just going to take our little break here for the radio.
is our guide in the vast expanse. It's where we reside. Hands up to the sky, let the bass ignite. Feel the grooves around us, everything's alright.
From the foundation heights, Christ, the truth is our guide in the vast expanse. It's where we reside. Hands up to the sky, let the bass ignite. Feel the grooves around us, everything's alright. SNX radio, let the truth ignite. Together we'll shine, bringing shadows to light. In this cosmic dance, we're connecting the dots.
Tune into the frequency, let's explore the spots. Heavy bass drops with tight beats.
Illuminate the shadows, the echo of our call.
On this roller we will never fall.
Feel the energy rising, can you sense the spark? As we dive deeper into the cosmic arc.
Stories of the universe, mysteries unfold. In the heart of SNX, where the truth is gold. Every note we play, every line we write, crafting our legacy, shining ever bright.
SNX radio, let the truth ignite. Together we'll shine, bringing shadows to light. In this cosmic dance, we're connecting the dots.
Tune into the frequency, let's explore the spot. Here in the spotlight, we're taking our turn. With the fire in our hearts, let the passion burn. SNX radio's call, ringing through the air. Together we rise, together we dare.
So join us now, let the rhythm flow. With SNX radio, we're ready to go. Unraveling the mystery side by side, we stand hand in hand. In this dance of truth, let the story expand. In the still of the night, when shadows creep, whispers of secrets in silence sleep. Coley's voice cuts through the dark, guiding us where the mystery spark. A journey awaits, far from our home, through realms unseen where wild thoughts roam. With experts aligned, their truth to share, unfolding the fabric of cosmic despair. Take the leap, step into the night. With SNX radio, we will ignite a symphony of strange where the bass drops low. Journeying deep where the unknown flows. UFOs glisten in the starlit sky. ET whispers, look up, don't be shy. Paranormal tales woven into fate, as Coley invites us to contemplate. Feel that chill when shadows align. Experiences unfold, one of a kind. Off-world encounters, truth they must find. Open your heart, release your mind. Take the leap, step into the light. With SNX radio, we will ignite a symphony of strange where the bass drops low. Journeying deep where the unknown flows. When life beyond the veil of sight
All right, and welcome back to SNX Radio. This is Coley, and we have Rodney and our special guest, Grant Cameron. Before we went on break, just for our short break for radio side, Grant was talking about some really stuff that just really was hitting home. I wanted to ask you, and there's questions from the guests, whatever, but there's three things that I just absolutely love that you said. Through trauma, when I was a small child, I drove with a man who died while driving the car. I thought I was dead. We went through. I was like, from that point forward, it did open me up, and I was seeing spirits and all of that. That seems to be a commonality. Two, that people with their like fragmented and how they're meeting people, the experiencers are going to see things in a totally different light. I appreciate what you said because I've actually had the Dubuque Police Department, and they'll watch this too. And I was I was referred to as promoting conspiracy theories with our local Blue. So I'm not really was not very happy about that, but I turned it around and I'm opening up the people's intel. So it's used and it's not an easy place to be. We're all sitting in a very uncomfortable spot. So I really appreciate you, Grant. I know, and also DMT. I just want to say that I did try it, and I hung in there for 6.5 hours, and it ended up breaking. But the only other person, I don't know when your experience was like this, but the only other person that I could see was the guy that I was doing it with. Everybody else was gone. Like, everything is just like upside down. So you have to let go. Once in a while, I'd reach behind and be like, okay, I'm still here. I'm like, I can still feel the floor or something like that. But it was so crazy. And then he talked about going to the end of the universe, but I never made it there. So I just wanted to ask your experience on that because I know that you believe like interdimensional, and I'm just telling you what you say hits home to me as an experiencer like 1,000%. So I like really resonate with what you're saying. So I'm just wanted to hit
Yeah.
on those points. But yeah, brilliant.
The DMT and the 5-methoxy DMT and ibogaine are the ones I was still on my bucket list to do. The way I got into it was I would try meditation and lucid dreaming. I was trying that, and none of that stuff would work. And I already knew the idea that you can get in the field. And I knew that if you took psilocybin, and not just you take the high dose, the hero dose that Terence McKenna used to call it, the hero dose, where it completely you want to break through. You don't want to be sort of just there where your mind is sort of wandering around having a good time or whatever. And so I hated roller coasters, and I always said, if you don't like roller coasters, you shouldn't do this. And I figured, no, I got to get in. I can't. Meditation doesn't work, and I know that I'm going to get on the roller coaster, and it's going to be out of control. But I just want to see what it's like to actually be on the other side. And because I had the UFO sightings and stuff like that, but I didn't have any encounters in terms of seeing beings or anything like that. So when I did it, the way I set it up was I said, I'm here. That's why I called it the Psilocybin School. I said, I'm just here. I'm not here for any reason. I don't want to get high, nothing. I'm here for one reason. I come for school. What do I need to know? And the first 6 for sure, they'd all sort of faded. It's in the book, but the first 6 for sure, I knew within a couple minutes exactly what the lesson was about. And it was just the weirdest thing how it was given to you. It all happens in sort of high emotion. Like psilocybin is like you take the emotion level and you put it to 12 and you just like go and you're just like vibrating. Even when you start, you can feel yourself vibrating, and it can be very scary. And even after I've done 27, I still hate doing it. I have to talk myself into it. It takes me a couple months because I know I've heard the music. I use the John Hopkins playlist. I don't deviate from the protocols, the set and setting as they call it, because people want to do their own little thing. And to me, it's just too high dose. It's too dangerous to be playing around on your own. You stay as close to the protocols as you can. And the thing that I had was I would have images of things like this is just before COVID happened. I'm above the earth. I'm above Canada. And they say, look, you can see all sort of like these souls coming up from the earth. And I thought just like white things coming up. And I instinctively knew. So it's not like anybody tells you anything. You instinctively know that these are souls. And then they said, look to the south, and you look to the United States. And it was just like, oh, holy cow. It's just like, oh, so I knew before COVID that it was going to be bad. And, but I never really saw anything. One of the things I realized, this connection between the spiritual thing and the paranormal stuff, is Jim Semivan. You're familiar with him, the CIA guy. Okay, so Jim Semivan says he's talking to James Ian Dole. He's interviewing him, and James wants him to talk about his sighting. He said, "Well, I don't want to talk about my sighting. They're still working on it, and I just don't want to get into it and stuff like that." I had some details on his sighting, but he didn't want to talk about it. And then James is he's floundering around. He says, "Okay, well, was there any telepathy? Before we go to the next question, was there any telepathy?" And then Jim Semivan says, "That was the weirdest part." He says, there was this being behind me, and it had this guardian type thing going on about it. And I went, "What guardian type thing going on about?" So I went to James. I said, "James, contact him back. Ask him if it's on the right side or the left side." Because if you know the literature, the Michael Newton life between life stuff, where he got 7,000 people go in front of the council, and your spirit guide stands behind you on the left side. So when I'm doing the psilocybin stuff, and I didn't realize this till maybe a couple months ago, I'm sitting there and I'm going over this thing, because what I discovered when he brought that up is I'm going, hey, I go back to my data from the people who flew the craft. And I remember the guy from he was a U.S. Air Force colonel, flew combat in Iraq out of L.A. And he said, it seemed like a dream. I said, everything is a dream. Just tell me your story. And he was a pilot. So he said, I'm on the craft. And he said, I just appear on the craft. I don't go there or anything. I'm just on the craft. And he said, there's somebody behind me talking to me. And I'm thinking, he had it. And then I started to realize there was a bunch of people who had somebody behind them who was talking to them. I went to Whitley Strieber. I said, hey, Whitley, you were on the craft a number of times. And he said, yeah. I said, hey, get this thing. People are reporting there's somebody behind them. Do you ever have somebody behind you when you're on the ship? He said, all the time. He says, I told you I was going to steal the thing. I was sitting at the panel board and I decided I'd like to steal this thing. And somebody behind him telepathically started laughing. And so you got this pattern of somebody behind you. So when I was doing the psilocybin stuff, it wasn't until a little while ago, a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of months ago, I suddenly realized, like, I never saw anybody. It was just the words were there. It was like, it wasn't even someone talking to me. It's just when I would say stuff. I remember the only one that was, they kept going on this thing about my ego. They said, you think you know everything. You haven't got a clue what's going on. And they keep going. Every time I go into this session, they'd come with the same thing. Your ego, you got to get it in control. You think you know everything, and you haven't got a clue. And then one time I got frustrated, and I said, okay, I'm not here to fight. I mean, I came here on honest purposes. I just want to know what's going on. So you tell me. I mean, I'm trying to figure it out. I may have a big ego, but you tell me what the hell's going on. And then this voice says, we don't know either. And I go, oh, come on. and there's this thing where there's somebody behind me. And I remember the one was, and this is the thing where the spirit guide is involved, and it's almost like the play. So that you've agreed to be abducted, you've agreed to be on the ship, and your spirit guide standing behind you, because this is all a big play. It's all Shakespeare. We come on, you read your lines, you leave the stage or whatever. And so the one that really impressed me, and I was actually taping. I would actually do the session. It would last, now they don't last very long, maybe 3 hours, but they would last for maybe 5-6 hours. And I actually had a tape recorder, and I was taping as it was going. Okay, I'm feeling this. I see the at the beginning, you see as you're going through this field or whatever, there you have the lights, the different color psychedelic lights coming in, and I go, I'm not interested. And I never really saw it because I wasn't interested in seeing them. And then I remember the one time there was like a lace. It was like a lace, like a fabric with lace, and it was coming across, and I go, that is weird. And then I went to look at it. It was like a almost like a telephoto lens. It went right in, and I'm looking at this thing. and so I would have this session, and I remember the one I was taping, and I taped it, and the problem is I was swearing too much. So I sounded crazy. I even said to myself, you start laughing, and I'm laughing and I'm swearing, and then I thought, I can't release this tape. There's no way, man. Even I think I'm crazy. And the one I remember specifically, I have this thing on board the ship. Somebody will have the being, and they'll say he or she, and I say, well, how do you know? Does it look different than a man? No, they all look the same. Well, how do you know it's a male or a female? And then they say by the energy. And then this one night, I remember I was dealing with a woman, and I'm going, this is so wild. And I'm laughing. I can't believe into a woman. And I'm sort of still sort of under. I'm sitting on the side of the bed. I'm going, I can't believe this. I'm talking to a woman. And that tape I had to destroy because I was just laughing. But it was this weird thing that you see people describe on board the ship is that, you're an etheric being. You're like a ball of light. And that when somebody encounters you in the spirit world or whatever, they know who you are, and they can sense whether you're a male or a female, and then you can project yourself as whatever you want. Like my father who died. I tell those people this thing about you take on a play. My father was dying, and my father always wanted to play the skeptic. And so he told my mother and he told my sister this story. He never told me. And I'm thinking like he probably knew I was going to say, I told you so. And 2 days before he died, or the day before he died, his father came to him. And my mother went in and he said, my father was here today. And my mother says, oh, really? What do you have to say? And my father said, he was just here. That's all you need to know. And then the thing was with it was you asked the question, well, how if my grandfather had lived 1,000 lifetimes, why did he come as my father's father? Because if he came as anybody else, he wouldn't know who it was. And that's the whole thing with Barbara Streisand's stepson is a full-blown experiencer. And he said that what he was told is that when we come into your world, we go into your head and we look at it, see what's in your head. And whatever's in your head, that's what we use to build a lesson. We have no other choice. So all your prejudices, your fears, all your sort of stuff, they're playing off that. They're playing off what's in your head. And that's where this key thing comes, that we are actually etheric beings. We're like balls of light, and we come in to play these various roles. And so I'm always looking for, I'm not looking for smart people like rational and analytical, because you can take all the belief in the world. They have all the smarts, all the belief in the world, and whatever. You can take $1 and you can't buy a cup of coffee. That doesn't count for anything. It's the people who've had the experiences. And so I've tried to find, as I started, who knows what's going on here. And then I discovered it was the experiencers. And the other one is the channelers, which we probably haven't got time to talk about that. But I spent a lot of time with channelers because
I grew up a channeler. Yeah.
Trans
That's
channel.
awesome.
And there's even an experiment I want to run. I'm still trying to find a trans channeler who's willing to do this. Is if you know Jay-Z Knight was dealing with Ramtha, and Ramtha told her, take your DNA. So when she was straight, they took her DNA, and then when she was under trance, they took her DNA three times both times, and they put it to 3 different labs, and the DNA had changed. And she was a male in the DNA, and in her normal life she was French female. And what I maintain is that if you get a trans channeler and another being comes in, the DNA is going to change. And I tried to run this experiment, and it just hasn't happened for whatever reason. And I say, if I can duplicate that experiment where your DNA changes, the whole world is upside down. And then people have to sort of explain what's going on. Same as if you followed these. I was one of the first to interview Kai Dickens, who with the telepathic children, the autistic, the telepathy tapes. And these kids, this is what it is. Your language, when I'm talking to you, I'm talking to your left brain. Your ego and your voice is in your left brain. And these kids are nonverbal autistics, which means they've got left brain damage. And this is almost the same thing as meditation or hypnosis or stuff like that, where the left brain shuts down. So these kids' left brain, the ego is not getting in the way. And these kids are 100% telepathic. Now, the experiments are going on now. That will change the whole world. That was the most important thing I've seen in the last 20 years is these kids who are not 9 out of 10, 2 out of 3. And I already knew that with autistic people, that if you ask them like calendar counters, you can ask them all these dates, they're never, ever wrong. And that's the difference between rational analytical thought from scientists who have opinions and people who have been in the field, because the stuff you get in the field is never, ever going to be wrong. It's to find people who are channeling, who can get in the field through an experience on a ship or whatever, and claim that they had this information given to them. That's going to be the real material. The stuff, who cares what Phil Klass thinks, or some skeptic West thinks? Who cares? Everybody's got an opinion. I don't care. I'm trying to find the answer, and the indication I absolutely firmly believe is all the answers are in the field.
Okay, so I was a mental health therapist for 7 years. I understand what you're saying, and there's ways of tricking that part of your brain. But I also want to say that I grew up a medium and a channeler, and I'm willing to take. I mean, if you want to put something together, and I know other people who are like me, but I volunteer. Absolutely, 1000%. If
Yeah.
you want to put something, I'm telling you, because there is a connection. I just haven't figured it out. And
Yeah.
I'm past that. Like, if you can tell people, and you can tell like the area that they're at through this, because at the beginning they're still stuck on like, oh my God, this memory, this memory. I'm
Yeah.
like, forget those memories. They're not important.
Yeah.
They were points of reflection. They're enough to get you here. So
Yeah.
like once you're here, you know what I'm saying? Like, so yeah, so what if you have that, we're not like a duality, we're not a singularity, we're like more of a trinity, like is that what you're saying with the DNA that
Yeah, or
everyone
you get
has?
like the other one that works, and I was going to use, but you couldn't use them, and that's multiple personality disorder people who will have
Oh,
24 alters that protect them or whatever. And the one has diabetes, the other one doesn't have
God, come
diabetes, one
on.
wears glasses, the other one doesn't wear glasses, and stuff like that. And that's the indication that you get, or like these kids that will speak different languages. And I asked her, I said, how many of them are speaking different languages? Most of them. And it's like these kids have never left the house. I mean, they can't dress themselves, they can't eat themselves, and stuff like that. And that's where you get this thing where the phenomena is in the field, and if you can get in and get it and access it, and the thing is to have a trance channeler where the voice actually changes. Even if you followed Paul Selleck, who's got the famous for the 12 books and no edits. So I always say to people, I can tell when someone's channeling. You say, "Oh no, they're just making it up." I say, "I got $1,000 bet. You want to put $1,000 and lose $1,000? I can bet you can't do it." And what you do is Paul Selleck, because he whispers half a sentence, then he repeats it. Whispers half a sentence, repeats it, and he goes through the entire book. He's written 12 books, no more than 2 edits in a book. So if you look at our transcript tonight on YouTube, you'll see and all this sort of stuff. A trance channeler will never go string sentences together. It's pure. There's no edits. So when he said he's talking about the fact that when he does the channeling, and then he does the other thing that he does is he can go with a live person, and he can say, your sister, give me your sister's name, and he can pick up your sister who's still alive and tell what the problem is. And he said people will say to me, your eyes turn blue when you're channeling, and I'm going, hey, his consciousness is changing, because the blue eyes, if your eyes change color, that's DNA. And then I'm sitting there, and then I'm waiting, and he's at one point he says, somebody asked him, you ever seen your spirit guide? He says, oh yeah. He says, guy wears this really big tall hat, and he's got the brightest blue eyes. I said, I knew it. And it's like, so his spirit guide is actually coming into him, and his eyes will actually change color. And that's what you'll see with a lot of mediums and stuff like that, where they'll say the eye color will change, the voice changes, the mannerisms all change, like the Bashar, the famous alien channeler. I talked to Jimmy Church about this, and because he had agreed to do it, and then it just fell apart. He would have been a good one, but Jimmy Church says that when he's when you're talking to him personally, he has this thing in his throat. Jimmy Church thinks it's because he drinks milk or whatever, that he's always sort of clearing his throat. As soon as he gets on stage and goes into trance, there's no more clearing his throat. He doesn't clear his throat anymore. And that's this whole idea, is that it's the idea that consciousness is primary, and that if you change the person, and you'll see this in all these kids, they speak other languaes, they are talking to dead people, and it's like, why would you turn this down? Like, people will say, I remember one DNA guy, I said, I don't care, like JC Knight faked it. Maybe she faked it, yeah, but maybe she didn't fake it. And all it is 2 DNA tests, one when you're normal, one when you're in trance channel, and you compare them, and you send them to 23andMe, because they don't care. They're just going to process the thing. They're not going to try to mix the results or whatever. They just process it. And so there's all these different potentials that I think we're on. And I think that the kids, the telepathic kids, are the biggest thing that's happened in many years. That these kids, if you get kids who are 100% telepathic, then they're in the field. It's like the idea where you'll get some guy. I don't know if you've seen the video. There's a guy. His name was George Finn out of New York City. 60 Minutes did a thing with him, and of course they ask him all these questions. The year 1, July the 11th, year 1, all this sort of stuff, and he's answering all this, and he can tell you exactly what the weather was like any day, what the weather was, and morning, afternoon, evening, whatever. And they're asking him all this stuff, and they say, George, that's amazing. how can you do that, George? You got every single one of them right. He said, it's pretty good, eh? It's pretty good. I can do that. And he has no idea what he's doing. And the question is, so when you give him the year 1, July the 11th, where's he getting that from? So people say, oh, he's calculating. So then they ask 60 Minutes asked him, hey, George, okay, let me ask you a question. What's 5 times 7? And he goes, well, that'd be 50. And then they ask all these simple math. You can't answer them. So he's pulling it out of field. He's not getting it anywhere. And I had an opportunity to work with autistic people who, they always have two talents. When the one guy, he knew everything about sports all around the world. He could tell you everything, how many Czechoslovakian football players, how many football players are married to movie stars. He just knew everything. And it was unbelievable. And that's the whole thing.
It really is. I was talking to a kid at the pool, and he could identify the train, the year, the whatever. And that train I just like legitimately just came into our hearing range, and I was like, "How do you do this?" He's like, "We're like Transformers." I was like,
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. They've got the left brain damage because they're not sociable. These sort of things, and that's the whole thing is this damage. So it comes through trauma, or it comes through events. And we always have the thing, we want the good things, but you got to realize if the trauma is part of it, then you agreed to this thing to open yourself up. I got to open myself up to do my job, and therefore I have agreed to go through a near-death experience or whatever like that. It's this idea that it's much more planned, and especially if reincarnation is a fact, then everything changes in terms of how the world actually works. And if consciousness is primary, then the Big Bang. I always ask people, like the Big Bang, they're like Terence McKenna used to call it, like you don't get to start with a miracle. You don't get to start with all the mass and the energy and all the laws of the universe.
A destruction, yeah.
First starts, and then so they have this idea that you got these hydrogen atoms to start. It's got the electron, and it's like, well, how did they learn to do that? I mean, you got like billions and billions and billions of, and how do you learn to do that? It's like consciousness makes sense that we are all there at the beginning, and then we decide, almost like the reflection idea, that we all agree to leave and reflect back to the one our experiences. And so the God is seeing all these reflections coming back of all these experiences, and it just gets more and more complex, and it's like a big show. It really doesn't have any sort of ultimate meaning at all, and we turn it into good versus bad. And when you look at it that way, I mean, you're going to die thousands of times, and it's going to be different ways, and it's basically all experiences. So it's not
cycling through. I said this is going to be my last time if I have to barter.
Well, people always say that, but that's where it comes into this idea of the aliens. Why are the aliens here? And the aliens are here because they're altruistic. That we are the only people in the universe who aren't altruistic. That's why we're stuck on the planet, because we're fighting, and it's this separation type thing. And therefore, when you get there, like my assistant always says that, and she's written a number of the books. You should get her on. She's really smart, and she saw me coming back, and I said, "What? So you're going to go to Hawaii and sit on a beach? I mean, how many billion years can you sit on the beach in Hawaii?" It's like this idea that you want to come back. You want to. That's the whole idea. That's why you left, is to make the universe a better place, and that's what is happening.
Couldn't you hear yourself, Grampy? I'm like, I could handle that. No big deal. Throw it all. Throw the aliens. Take everything I have. Throw me in front of that moving train a bazillion times over. I can do it. No, I can. I did this to myself. Okay.
Yeah. And even if it's not true, even if you don't do it to yourself, you're not responsible for everything. In psychology that unless you take responsibility for what happened to you, whether it was your fault or not, you're not going to get cured. As long as you're a victim, and that's what happens in politics. That's what happens in advertising. People stealing your money is this thing. They want you to feel like you're a victim. And there really are in the universe, there's no victims. There's just experiencers.
Yes. The trauma's a way in. I tell people that you can't get around it. Like I had to ride with a dead man, and we were going through a cornfield at 90 miles per hour, but I had to do that so I could be here. I mean, that's how you get here. So I'm like, you guys can't take those previous life experiences, and people aren't like doom and gloom and, oh my God, this happened. It's so devastating in my life. And I'm like, who cares? This is a game. Come on now. We're here. Let's play. We want to make it through. Okay.
Yeah.
So, regardless of what you want, I'm going to make it to the other side because I don't care. I'm not coming back down here.
That's okay, Coley. I'm going to come back. I'm gonna come back. I thought I wanted to ascend and just stay up there. I'm ready to come back and help
No,
this
I'm
humanity forever.
you
Like they
swallow
say,
up.
nobody's saved until everybody's saved.
You're right. So that's what
It's
I'm
like if
wondering.
your
Say
kid, like if, for
no.
example, if you've got a kid and you die and then you see your kid is in trouble, you wouldn't come back and help your kid. It's sort of like that's the sort of the idea is that you realize it's all one thing and that it's this play. People take it as if it's we're worried about our 70 years and it's whoever's got rape, pillage, kill, and steal. Whoever's got the most toys when they die wins. That's the way the world is working, and they're trying to give us the other thing. And they're doing it in this way where they've probably done it on 1,000 different planets before. They know exactly. First, you send in the wooden ships, then you send in the Foo Fighters, then you send in the blue fireball, the green fireballs, and then they go through the same process all the time. And they know exactly how to shift people's belief systems to get us to ascend. And when the people are ready, they will. And people can do whatever they want. And everybody's at a different level. So we got to have compassion for the people who don't know and have respect for the fact that too much is given, much is expected. That when you go across on the other side, you can't say, "Oh, I was going to do that, but I kind of forgot."
I'm gonna say screw it, and I'm running. Somebody else can do it.
Yeah.
There's
You
another
know,
shift. Let the next
I just
shift
want
get
to.
it.
I think that we need a sequence. Is it? But I had like a sequence that some of us like. You're prepared for this, okay? So not everybody's meant for this. Not
Yeah.
every. I'm gonna tell it time to not. You might not be you. You might not be meant for this. But get the hell out of our way because we're coming through. You know what I mean?
That's
Like
exactly
disclosure's happening. I don't care what you do. If you get, everybody's like, okay, what if you come out and Project Blue Beam and they're all there? I said I'd turn around and I'd walk back in. I'd pick up my phone if it worked, and I'd try telling everybody like I did back 5 years ago. Do not shut yourselves down. Do
yeah.
not fall for your government's games. Please just like hold off a minute here and let the experiencers get this taken care of.
That's right.
Don't get in our
That's right.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have now a situation where they're being cut off by like the Soul Foundation conference will not bring
Mhm.
the woo woo stuff in. It's like we're gonna teach people that it's nuts and bolts. Then we'll go to the consciousness stuff. Well, you've been doing that for 80 years. It hasn't worked. And what's
Right.
the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again. Well, you're going to get some more sightings, and it's like it's just a total waste of time. We've sort of missed the boat. But I think it's more coming to people understanding that the experiencer thing, whether it's on this or whether it's on creations and inventions and stuff like that, people are starting to realize there's this idea of the muse that people are able to pull this kind of stuff. I did a whole Chris Bledsoe led me on this thing where I wrote the book Tuned In, the Paranormal World of Creativity.
I like him.
How many musicians are experiencers, and this whole idea like where does a musician get a song from? He sits there and he waits for it to pop in his head. That's how he gets the song. And how many songs are written in 5 minutes? It's in the best songs of all times are either dream songs or written in 5 to 10 minutes. It's unbelievable.
I believe that.
Yeah. I have a collection of over 800 songs about UFOs and aliens from different artists, from Ella Fitzgerald in 1952
That's a good one.
to modern days, from all genres and styles.
Yeah, that's it. And it's getting even more popular now. It used to be, we used to expose the ones that were experiencers, and now they openly talk about it. It's like, it's a different world in terms of, it was much more closeted back in the day where people would sort of keep it quiet as to their experiences and stuff like that.
I think they had more fear, like that. The Men in Black are going to come and hunt them down.
Yeah.
It's hard
And
to
would you
explain.
get Lakatsky saying the Men in Black is actually real. But then he says, and they said, they thought it was like government people. He said, no, the Men in Black, the real ones. And then they said, well, and then he said, but the question is, what are they actually doing? Are they trying to scare you away, or are they actually dragging you in? Because I know, like, people have near experiences with Men in Black where they come to the door, and it's the same thing with the dream sign. There's always something weird. The woman's got the wig on sideways or something like that, and they're wearing weird clothes and stuff like that. And the people will say, that wasn't a really big deal, but man, I just wonder who these people were. And it's the on curiosity. They're doing these weird things to get you dragged in down the rabbit hole. So you talk about it. That's what you're trying to do, is get the consciousness raised where people are discussing it. And eventually in the end, we're all going to come to the right decision. But first of all, we all got to talk about it and make it popular and everyday conversation. As long as it's being hidden, and that's why you get so many experiencers are told you got to write a book about. I'll ask them. I say, did you get told to write the book? And they go, yeah. Did they help you write the book? yeah, they can help me write the book. It's like, they want, that's what they want. They want it out. They want this, all this kind of stuff. And that's why I do the weird stuff, because if you're in a movie, I always describe the thing, you want this up and down. You want this oddity of nobody knows what's going on. Because if you're God and you walk into a movie theater and it's just a straight old thing where I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you, God goes, I'm getting out of here, man. I'm going next doors, watch Star Wars. And that's the whole thing. You need this up and down, and that's what they're doing. They're doing this weird sort of thing where you get dragged in and you're trying to figure it out, and you become obsessed with it and end up being divorced, and all that kind of stuff.
Oh God, yeah, you telling it. I know you shut everybody else out. I went from like, okay, I had my pilot's license, aviation. Now I'm studying Einstein's theories,
Yeah.
and I've got all these like notepads. Like I've just completely lost my marbles, but I'm now understanding things like it's just like that singularity. It was bizarre. It was like that day I changed. I
Yeah.
never was the same person after that.
Yeah. But then you have your audience now, you have a big audience, and that's the whole thing. You sort of feel like you're actually doing something. You're doing something. To me, the worst thing is, not knowing why you're here or what you're doing, whatever. You have a sense of achievement that you're actually helping the process, that you're part of something bigger than yourself.
Absolutely. And that's what keeps me going every day. And then it's like I meet people like you, and then I'm just like, wow, you just blew my mind this entire time. Like, I love experiencers because that's who other experiencers look to.
Yeah.
Like when I was just starting, like I'd look to anybody who would talk to me, and we unite, and we started just uniting into this community. And we got people who are leading. You're one of the leaders, but you make sense and you connect. And it's like, let's get this message out there, because I don't know if you know, but SNX stands for subnation, which is subliminal dissemination.
Yeah.
And I won't explain this again, but that's exactly what's going on. Is you're putting it out there, and the more people hear the words, the more people that hear UFO and aliens, and this is really happening, then it resonates, it shakes you a little. And that's what we're doing. So that's what I appreciate, Grant. Like you're going way out on a limb on some of this stuff, and I'm like, I'm cheering you on. And if I can help any way and I can volunteer, I'm game, because I want to figure this out just as much as you do.
Sure. Well,
And
we'll
I
do
think
the
our other
DNA
experience.
thing.
Yeah,
We'll
I'll
do
do
the
it.
DNA
I'll do
thing,
it. I'm game.
and I always I remember in 2012 when I had the experience, because I did the president stuff. I had all the presidential documents at the presidential website. I had everything anybody, all the sightings of the president, what they'd spoken about, and been to all the presidential libraries and stuff like that. And I remember Jerry Pippin, who was a very famous interviewer at the time, who's now deceased. He said to me, I can't believe you've done this, Grant. I just can't believe you've done this. You're the president guy. You had all the documents. You're the president guy. And you went to this woo stuff. I said, well, Jimmy, I'll tell you what. I didn't actually go there. I kind of got teleported there. And that's what you find is your experiences are really not yours. They happen, and you just go with it. You got no choice. You can't back away.
Once you encounter that, it's so much you can't say I didn't see it, because you saw it and there's no turning back.
Yeah.
Like if I tried to deny, I can't. The thing was 50 foot in diameter, it was 30 feet away. I can't even keep a straight face and try and tell you that what I was seeing wasn't there, was there. It's just like, come on. You can't. And once you're in on that point. So what's the difference between us and what I call the pawns? I think there's so many people out there that are just going day by day. They just kind of accept this. They're just never really going to get their heads out of the sand. And I don't think we need them. I think we could just, kind of ditch them.
No. Because we've got to remember that we're a very small portion. We're less than 1%. If you get people to put their top 100 items, UFOs is never going to come out top 100 items.
Mm-hmm.
They just, that when you're talking to somebody, you can see their eyes rolling back. It's like if you and I sort of discovered a new turtle or something. We're working on a new turtle, and you go tell someone your story about this turtle you discovered or whatever, rare turtle. They'll go, that's pretty cool, but I'm not going to go study turtles. The UFO thing has a different thing where you get that, it drags you in, where you suddenly realize how important this subject is, and you just can't let it go. And that's the method, and we should learn that method to train our kids and to train people, is using awe and curiosity rather than lectures. Because that's what we want to do, is we're smarter than you, and I'm going to lecture you. And that doesn't really work. It's this awe and curiosity. I have a little 1-year-old grandson, and I just let him, my kid gets kind of upset. You let him do whatever he wants. So I said, yeah, we're walking down the street. He can touch anything he wants. He's exploring, he's looking. And that's what you want, is awe and curiosity, instead of, having them in a room where they're doing the same thing all the time, playing with the same toys. That's what moves it. even if you see stuff and you wonder as a kid or whatever, how does this thing work? And then you become obsessed with it, and you end up inventing something because you were obsessed with caterpillars or whatever it is.
Why that obsession? It wasn't even, I remember asking Mufan the first time Dave Creator came out. I was like, do you think I'll see another one? And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, will I see another one of these? Like, a part of me was scared, like, to death. And the other part's like, I want to see, that was, how do you, okay, that just can't be the peak of my life, because that's so much excitement. That's so much like fear. There's so much, like you said, emotional intensity on like, times 12. Like you're just I was locked into that thing as much as it was locked into me. I know it sensed me. I could feel it. It's what you're saying is so true. It is so true that there's a consciousness. Those crafts are a part of what you think you see. And like, I just don't understand, because I've seen them too where they're small, and I'm just figuring, like, there's different realms of reality. We can only see such a small portion, but there are ways of seeing that bigger picture. I think you've got some like cutting edge of the ideas, and I would love, seriously, if I can volunteer, I'll volunteer, because I want
we'll
these
be in touch.
answers just as much as everybody else does. I think it's wonderful. I
Yeah.
applaud you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I thank you for what you do. I mean, it's very important to have people that are spreading the message, and if you've got lots of people, that's what you want, because it's probably what you agreed to do. And the worst thing is to be in the judgment thing where you have to say, well, I was going to do it, but I didn't do it. Because that's what Michael Newton said. He said they had 7,000 people that went in front of this council, and basically it's just review how did it work out, because you planned it. You can't blame Hillary Clinton and the dog ate the homework or my mother-in-law or whatever. You got to. And he said, what do the people say? He says, everybody says the same thing. I could have done better. And we have the realization that we have this in our hands, and that it's important, and the onus is on us to try to move it along. And even though a lot of it is done being indirectly, because if you're in a cocktail party or something, or a birthday party, or I know somebody will always know that I'm into UFOs, and they'll come over and say, hey, what's the latest thing on UFOs or whatever, and then you start talking to them, and there's a bunch of people around you, and you look about 10 minutes later and everybody's on the other side of the room, and you're talking to one guy.
There goes that crazy UFO lady, is what they say. And I don't
especially when I talk fast, everybody goes like, oh, that guy who ever shut up, holy cow.
No, I love it because you just pack it all in, and I'm sitting there like with excitement, because if you're an experiencer, you connect and you like feel it right in. I feel like it's like, okay, one learns, and that's what we're waiting for. It's like, I remember talking to Mufan after I got on board first, and I had my first one. I was like, okay, now what do I do? We're at step 2, and he's like, there's no step 2 in our book, and I'm like, what do you mean there's no?
Oh, he's gone.
Uh-oh. Well, I think, as soon as we start surrounding ourselves with more people and experiences, for myself anyways, you'll stop questioning your sanity and realizing you're feeling this from your senses. We see things, we hear things, we feel it. Sometimes we even smell,
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
That's right.
They don't like when you talk about that stuff.
Your step 2, you just appeared in step 2 there.
I know. I said there's no step 2, and that's where I feel like you're coming into play. I've seen you do it time and time again, and you have like these brilliant ideas on how we can kind of hack through stuff and prove it either to be or not to be. And that's cutting edge. That's disclosure right there.
And it's a matter of time until one of them actually works out. I don't know why. There must be some reason why I couldn't get Daryl Anka, because I remember I was there with him in an interview, and then I said he's still going to do it, and he said, well, yeah, why would I not add to science? And then his assistant says, well, we can't stick a needle in his arm while he's in trance. I said, I got to stick a needle in his arm. All you need is a swab out of his mouth. That's all you need. And she says, oh, I can do that. And then COVID happened, and then I had a woman who was a big. She's claimed that she was drawing Leonardo da Vinci under trance, and she was a prime candidate too. But then what happened was she would do these people. She would do a drawing of somebody that is dead. So I hired her to do the drawing, and then I remember it came and it was in this big envelope, and I got my mother and my sisters. I said, come on, here, this is going to be, we got to tell me who the dead person is in our family that she's drawn. And then it opens the envelope, and my sister's got 50,000 photos on her computer. She says, that's nobody in our family. And so then I looked and I was all depressed. I couldn't get anything on it. And then I put on Facebook, I put this joke. I said, the day I die, this woman's going to come back and be crying and saying, you didn't remember who I was. And then somebody went and told her, one of the top mediums in the world, this guy that was from the Skull, he went and told her, he says, well, Grant's making fun of you with that you can't figure who your thing is. And I'm going like, come on, you Brits, come on. It's a joke. Come on, it's a joke. I mean, she's going to come back on the last day and say, you didn't remember who I was. I sit there for hours. I stare at this photo and I go, so who are you? Like, why can't I remember who you are? It's like, I'm fascinated.
Don't
with
remember everybody. Okay.
Thing. And then she wouldn't do the DNA thing because she thought I'd made this joke and insulted her. And it wasn't. It was a joke. It was just, so we'll do that. That'll be especially if it works down the road. I mean, that's major contribution. These kids in this DNA experiment, I think, would work. The kids with the telepathy stuff, where you get the stuff, you can see different things there. Where like when you're channeling, you've got a gamma frequency and all this kind of stuff. And this thing I said, where they don't when you're channeling, you don't go like you do in normal life. It's very clear.
They come over. Yeah. I felt like when they're in the struggle of doing it, because at times I'm like, no, like arm's length away. But you can tell, like there's a point where there's that struggle to let go, and you're just you decide whether or not you're going to let go or not, let it come through. But
and that's what it comes down to, is letting go. And like women can do it. And then they said this, I don't know if you heard this stat where they said that almost 70% of male mediums are gay, and that'd be the same thing. It's got to do with this right brain, left brain thing.
So
they are. So and people will say, well, why should there be trauma? But then trauma is an experience. And we did a book called Contact Modalities, where we looked at 70 different modalities of like channeling and hypnosis and psychedelics and all the things we could think of how to get in the field. And that was one of the things. I think I wrote like 2 chapters, and trauma I said, people kind of be angry about this, but trauma is a big part of this whole thing.
Yeah. I always say that trauma is a pathway. Your trauma is a pathway. You can sit there, you can learn to ride that wave, because once you learn to ride that wave, then it starts to make sense.
Sure. That's why I say that why does an alien wake you up? He goes, wake up, wake up, wake up. And then you wake up and you go, oh my God, a terrible looking alien. And you say, okay, man, he's ready to go. Send him out. Because he's dissociated. He surrenders immediately. It's like, oh my God, alien.
You're right. And there is, because I remember transitioning back one time after I was looking at the clock, say, I'll blink. There was 3 of them. I blinked 5 and then went to 5:40. When I was coming back, there was a sliver of empty nothingness that it took to to come back.
Yeah.
So there's like a sliver of something where that's not in our space and our time. We're on their time and in their space. And whether or not, I ran around and I asked for that nickel tour. I saw the UFOs. I was so intrigued by them. I begged them to let me on. And they did. They did. And it's been the craziest, most life-altering experience of my life. But people like Grant, there's so many people that listen and they're here and they're just waiting for these, and what you're doing is so wonderful. So I would love to, like I said, I'm totally game and I'm willing to help however I can, because I think we have to do something to change this. Otherwise, we just, like you said, keep talking and talking and talking about this. We have the ability to, take this the next step. Like, let's do it. I say, tear off that Band-Aid and let's go.
There you go. That's right.
I'm ready. Really. But that's wonderful. So and I would love to do like a part 2 with you and send you back. And I appreciate all your time. And I unfortunately couldn't get to the audience questions because my screen froze and I have no idea why. But I just went with it because Grant's message is so important, and I promise I will get back to you. But seriously, we should plan something. I'm definitely down. And
I'll
I know
be in
Rodney looked here. Sounds great. So thank you so much again for coming.
Yeah,
So that was amazing. Isn't Grant awesome? Every time he just blows my mind. I'm like, oh my God, if I had words. And I was just going through this whole thing with this mirror image because I have an interview coming up on Monday where I'm the guest, and I just really couldn't put it into all words. And then I was watching, I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly, but it's so hard sometimes to put it into words. I absolutely love him to death. He really is. It would be an honor to work with him. But yeah, what do you think? You're a channeler too. What are your takeaways from all that?
He's got a lot of information. He wants to share it, and he was going on how everything's so connected. Yeah, I could listen to him all day. If he ever called me, I could put my phone down and listen, have conversation with him all day.
Yeah, me too. He's always like, "Oh, I'm sorry for talking so much." I'm like, "I'm just absorbing it all. Like, that's amazing. Keep going." But I do, I don't know what happened, if it was because I hooked up new equipment or not, but my StreamYard is like not happy with it. Is like totally rejected me like 15 times, 20 times. I don't know. And I kept hearing Scott Rosin say, "Oh, yeah." There's Coley and her technical difficulties. And I was like, oh. So anyway, I apologize for I have no clue what's going on, if it's because Neil C. Rodney and we've upgraded our equipment. So yeah, I got in there, Rodney, up until probably like 15 minutes before we started. I had no sound registering, and I was like, I'm gonna have to hook everything that was back up because it's not working. Finally it started working. So yeah, that's
I
great.
can't wait till we get it all synchronized and it's all going a little smoother. But
Oh,
it seems to be part of the
you're
show,
there.
though, so
We're
maybe it's
getting
expected.
right. And we're getting there. It's like
Yeah.
you're gonna pop on one day. We're just gonna have. I'm gonna find it together, and you're not gonna call me no technical difficulty, Scott. He said last time, and my light ring went out, and I was like, oh my god! Before he I
I
think
think
it's
that was a
so
great time. I
funny.
think the wife's just getting home now herself.
Okay, well, you know what, Matt? And we
Yep.
will see you tomorrow night. We have the lovely Dally Saffron, whose birthday was on the 10th, and we all have Preston Dennett, who is 7. Oh no, Dolly was 9, because Preston is 6. I'm 7th of May, and Dolly's 8th. Jeez, scratch that. So we have the 6th, 7th, and 8th. So we're doing a big birthday celebration with Dolly and Preston tomorrow. So it'll be fun. Oh gosh, I love them. They really are great. But yeah, Grant Cameron was like, if you didn't see it, I definitely encourage you to go back and watch it. So until tomorrow night, at Hicks Radio, we'll see you soon. Any last words, Rodney? Gonna take us
Oh,
out?
no, not at this moment. No, you caught me off guard tonight. But yeah, I'm going to go back and listen to that myself a few times for sure. And hopefully, the more we keep doing this, more people are going to come forward and realize, like I was saying, when you disappeared, stop questioning your sanity and realize, you did see something, you heard something, you felt something. Some of you maybe even, it's very physical.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. And you got all these people like like our guest tomorrow, Preston and Dolly. I feel like they are family. I can't explain this. And people have asked me so many times, it's so cool. They'll be like, "Are you and Dolly related?" Because you guys, and I started looking, I was like, I think we do have some of the similar characteristics, but our stories, I mean, it's just like when you come in contact, like with you and with other people, it just feels like family. And that's what this is all about. So, you know, like I said, it's an honor every person that gets to come on here, like, and talk. I mean, they're these people are telling you, like, just open your hearts. If you're not at that point yet, no, you will be. I promise you. I was once in your shoes. Rodney was once in your shoes. Rodney's great. If he's got, tell him where your group is before we go on Facebook. And I
Oh yeah,
promise I'll
it's
be quiet. But
star. It's star. You spell it out with the dots in there. It does. I know it sounds awful, but S period T period A period R period. Support for those abducted and returned. It's continuously growing. Got some great active admins and moderators, chats. Wonderful place.
yes.
No judgment zone.
Yeah, and Rodney, I see you answering. It's lovely to see that because like I said, we're all on our different layers or whatever. But I've seen you and how interactive you are in the people, and it is growing. Like you said, it's S.T. You just spell the acronym STAR out. We do have it in the comments too, and I encourage you to join. It's great to connect with other people and to really know you're not alone out there. Like I said, tomorrow night, look forward to Preston and Dolly Saffron, Preston Dennett. And Preston has opened up this number that people can call, which I think is an absolute brilliant idea. So I can't wait to get that and get that number out there because everybody
Yeah.
who's wanting to, they contact Preston. Like Dolly and I don't know how they're doing it. If I were them, I
I
would.
attempted it. I attempted it. I got a flip phone I try to do that with, but I'm not reaching enough people. But Preston's got so many followers, and every video he's getting thousands and thousands of hits. So yeah, Preston, expect your phone to be ringing, buddy.
Platformed. Yeah, that was a power play move, like where I was like, yes, and he's
Very
willing
brave.
to take on that. I would probably open it up and be like, good God, Rodney, I don't know where to start. Like, you know, but Preston, he's got his shit together, you know, with all this stuff. Like he's, you know, he knows what's going on. So I love it. So on behalf of SNX Radio, thank you for taking the journey into the unknown, and we will see you tomorrow night with Dolly Saffron. Love them. And Preston Dennett, two of the most loveliest people I know, and they are honestly, they're taking disclosure, and they are pushing this like to the limit. So we appreciate that. We appreciate that. So talk to you soon.
Bye, everybody. Great to see you.